Actually, I think I may have recorded this song before, and it's called The Robin. And I usually play this song in the key of A. There's a peregrine falcon nest up on the cliffs here above me. So far this morning I can hear right now singing the robins. That's why I'm going to be playing this song. There's also some finches over here singing. I saw a golden eagle this morning flying over just as the peregrine falcon came into its nest. It's up above us here over these cliffs. And then I was playing another song a few minutes ago, and as I finished the song, a hummingbird came up when I was facing north, standing on this big boulder here. And a hummingbird represents the northern direction in the medicine wheel. And that's the southern hemisphere tradition, is the hummingbird. And that represents ancestors. And I came here today to this spot on this boulder in this place called Joe's Gap. And it's a place I didn't really connect to when I was a child as much as I probably should have. This could have been a real sanctuary for me to come to and process some of the difficult things that I was going through in my childhood, but it wasn't time then for me to have the wisdom and the ability to find myself in a place of being present in the moment. I was always pretty busy. My mind was occupied. So, till I could quiet that chatter down and then listen, I could start to hear experience messages coming through. And a lot of times those messages come through in what I see around me. The different kinds of birds and sounds and calls and those kinds of things. If you pay attention, because there's a way of seeing things where we feel connected to everything, and we find that place when we become fully present. And then you connect to this creative intelligence that allows you to create in the moment whatever you're passionate about. And I've been creating some things in that space, but I like to go out into nature like this, and I even just do it in my backyard, to take the time to be present and listen with my ears, see with my eyes, smell with my nose, taste with my mouth, feel all of the things around me, the stones, the rocks, this big boulder that I'm sitting on. This is a special place for my ancestry. I can feel that feeling of those who lived here in this valley, who settled in this valley. And I've gone back to just kind of wonder at times, why is it that we decided to come to this valley? It's not really that hospitable in the wintertime, hasn't been. Things are warming up a bit now. Doesn't seem like we have the snows. We don't have the kinds of really difficult winters like some of the ancestors had anymore. But even now, it's really cold here. It's difficult. There's a reason people don't like to stay here in the winter. And my ancestors came here. In fact, my great-grandfather Amos Wright came here in 1863, around September, October time frame, which is the time when it's getting really cold, really, really cold. And it just gets colder and colder and colder. And it doesn't even begin to start to warm up until about March. And he came here and he lived in a dugout for that first winter, dug into a side hill, below freezing, below zero temperatures. And I think of the hardship that he went through. I think how difficult that must have been. And he did it because of his conviction. And the history of that conviction was his dedication to the Mormon church. And I know he was dedicated to the Mormon church because he served as a Mormon bishop for 40 years of his life in a little town called Bennington, Idaho. I've found in my journey that there's more than one way. And the guiding light to that other way is actually what Jesus taught, and what Buddha taught, and what Lao Tzu taught, and the ascended masters that walked on this planet for all time. And it was about love. And it was about connection. Not just connection to those around us, but connection to everything, all of the natural world, all the birds and the sounds and the beauty and everything that there is. We're sitting here at this place in Joe's Gap. You can see, I'll put my knees down, you can kind of see up here these cliff sides. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. And this boulder here, I know my ancestors came and sat on. And one of the reasons that I know that is because just over the hill and around the hill is another place that my great-grandfather used to go to and escape to, because he was a practicer of polygamy in his religion. He had 2 wives. And that became illegal, and the Mormon men started to be sought after to be arrested, to not be able to practice that. It wasn't anything that the government at the time or the people approved of. And, I thought about my grandfather coming here and about him coming here because of his religion and his conviction to that practice of polygamy and all those other things. And as I sit in silence sometimes, I hear another message. I've met a man. His name is Darren Perry. And Darren is the chairman, as they call themselves, or which is really the chief. He's a former chief. He's not a chief now. He's not serving in that capacity as chairman currently. But I encountered him through my friend Jeffrey Olson. I went to an event where he spoke, and he talked about this event that happened in 1863, the same year my great-grandfather came here to this valley, Bear Lake Valley. And that event happened just over the hill, about 40 miles away from this valley, in Cache Valley, at a place called the Bear River Massacre, where there was a Shoshone tribe living there, passing the winter in January. And as they were there in January, the army came and massacred nearly 500 men, women, and children in the cold dead of winter, in that cold, cold time. And I had heard that story before, but I hadn't heard it from the point of view of those who went through it from the suffering side, the Shoshone tribe. And I heard that message, and it was powerful. When I heard that message, it brought into my heart a feeling of sorrow, a feeling of compassion, a feeling of regret, a feeling of really looking again at what it is that the natives went through when they were really forced to give up their land. You know, I think about what if it was my family, and what if we were attacked, and what if my wife were killed, or my children were killed, or my father or mother or grandparent, or whoever. And that feeling, I think all of us can be compassionate with that. And imagine what they went through. And the suffering of those even that survived, because as they were attacked, some of them swam into the Bear River. They sat right alongside the Bear River to escape, and hid underneath the banks in the cold water in January. Very, very cold. There were a few that survived that continued to tell the story. And Darren is a descendant of those who told the story, and now he shares the story. They're in the process of building a center on that site to tell this story. And Darren is spearheading that fundraising effort. And I've invited him, Ray and I have invited him to come to our home and speak and share this story on August 27th, coming up, 2022. But in the telling of the story, when I started to listen to his story, I started to listen deeply. And I heard of an event, and I read this in a letter. I read of an event where Amos was at a treaty signing in Soda Springs, Idaho, which is about 30 miles north of here. And that treaty signing happened because of this massacre. And again, it was in 1863. The date, I don't remember for sure, but it was after the massacre. It was after the recognition of what had happened. It was after the event itself. And you know, I would be interested to read the treaty to see what it said. I haven't done that yet, but I want to do that. I want to read that treaty. I'm going to ask Darren for a copy of that treaty so that I can know what was said. But Amos was there in the capacity of being an interpreter, because he was, when he grew up, he moved across the plains from New York, from Nauvoo, Illinois, actually, and his father, Jonathan Calkins Wright, came across the plains, and Amos was pretty young. I think he was about 10 when he crossed the plains. Came here, and then was when the family, his father's family, Jonathan's family, moved to Brigham City area in Utah. And there in Brigham City, there was a place close by where the Shoshone tribe would come and set up their camp. And Amos was, when he was young, would go and enter those camps and mingle with the natives. Mingle with them so much that he learned their language, so you know he mingled with them quite a bit. And then he became, later in life, after lots of adventures, one including riding in the Pony Express when he was pretty young, he became an Indian interpreter. And he was at the treaty for that signing. Well, the leaders of the Mormon church were looking to expand where they wanted to go. And they weren't yet in the Bear Lake Valley, but they were looking to continue to expand out into the different valleys. And they decided to bring some settlers here. So lots of families came here. And that's why there's this connection of lots of different families in different little towns all around Bear Lake throughout the valley. And Amos settled here after that first winter in the dugout, came to Bennington, Idaho, and settled, which is still a very small town. It's an unincorporated town of about 100 people, so it's pretty small. But there were lots of different families that came there and settled, Wrights being one of them, and there were others. My wife, Lorraine, also grew up in this valley, and her family came here early on. They were from Switzerland, and so they were the cheese makers. They were called here to be the cheese. And each of us have this heritage, whether we are aware of it or not, of those who came before. And some of us come into that, into a place in that it feels like there are good things that went on, and others of us, there weren't so good of things. But I think that the ancestors that were before, after they pass out of this life, they start to realize that this life is really an experience. I know quite a few people who have had near-death experiences, and they talk of this wondrous light and this love, this beautiful thing that is all around us. If we get a picture here. That's all around us all the time. And each of us can connect to that in our own way. And when Amos came here and was called by his church to come here and settle in this valley, it was a lot of that reasoning had to do with the fact that he was an Indian interpreter, that he spoke the language, and they needed people here in this valley that did. So he was one of those that was called here to do that. He was noticed at that treaty signing by one of the leaders of the church here, who's another relative of mine, Charles C. Rich. Charles C. Rich was what they call, in the Mormon church, they call an apostle of the church. My grandmother, Lenore Rich Wright, married my grandfather, Conover Wright. Conover was a son of Amos. He came here because of his religious conviction, for sure. But I see him also have come here as a peacemaker, as a bridge, as someone who walked between the two worlds of the natives and the whites, or the settlers, and the church. He served 5 missions among the Shoshone tribe. Those 5 missions were served in a capacity of being a Mormon missionary, traveling to Fort Lemhi and also to the Wind River Mountain area of Wyoming, where they would go in the summertime. In the winter, they would go to Lemhi in Salmon, Idaho, which was much milder weather. So I started to really think about that because he was an honored man in a lot of ways. He had his demons. He was excommunicated from the church twice. And so when he had that belief system as part of his being, for sure, and passed that down through the generations for his children, and it came from both sides. Both of my grandparents on my father's side were active Mormon. They were in this valley, lived their entire lives here, lived and died here. And my mother actually was born in the Salt Lake area, and then came here because her parents divorced when she was fairly young, and she came here with her mother, who then married, and she married a gentleman from Bern, which is the original town of my wife, Lorraine. So there's a connection with my mom to Bern, my father to Bennington, and now here I am sitting on this rock, waiting for the sun to come over the top of that little cliff back there, which is going to happen momentarily. I can see it coming. But what I want to do this morning is I want to honor that message. I honor that heritage. I honor where everyone came from. For myself, I choose not to be part of the religion. Robin just landed up on the cliff there, because I'm going to play the Robin song right now. So I pay attention to the messages that come around. my great-grandfather Amos has been showing up at different times for me as a woodpecker. Most specifically, a flicker, but not necessarily that. And I don't hold an attachment to that. But I look for messages in nature, and a lot of times I get them, and I see them, and experience them. You can see up here probably on the video, there's swallows all over the place. They're out on the hunt. They've all got babies right now, so they're swooping and diving and looking for bugs. And it's just a beautiful dance in the wind to watch them do that. All right, I'm going to play a little bit of music. Enough of that story. But I want to play this for the robins and just be present with what is. Let the light shine.